Hey everybody, I'm Todd and this is Uni-T Guitars. Thank you so much for stopping by the channel and welcome to my life. Alright you guys, last weekend I released a video introducing you guys to a brand new build here on the channel. This will be the first original design that I have come up with that I intend to duplicate. I've come up with a name for it, and there's a couple of different reasons why I want to use this name, but I'm going to call it the Uni-T. I'm going to offer this guitar with multiple options, multiple pickup configurations, multiple bridge configurations. I can do it as a set neck or a bolt-on, back angled headstock or a flat fender style headstock. Since we're designing this guitar on the fly, I kind of want to deep dive into my process here so I can document my method. I'll have something to go back and reference. I do hope, however, that you guys gain something from it as well. So let me show you what we've got here, and we'll talk a little bit about how I'm going to do this video. This is my neck blank. This is insanely rippled curly maple. I've got two pieces of curly maple cut that's wider than that other piece. Those came from a different board. And I've got the figures running in a little bit of a different way, the way it's going to meet up here. I think that's going to add some dimension to the back of this neck. I think it's going to look really cool because I'm going to put some veneer in between this. That piece up the middle, I've tapered that, as you can see. That is a piece of red heart. And red heart is so beautiful. So I had been on the lookout for some red heart for a while. Finally, Cook Woods in Oregon had, not only did they have some in stock, they had it on sale. So I bought myself a couple of boards of it. Look at that grain in that stuff, you guys. That is just sick. It's really lovely wood. We're going to have some hand plane work left to do on it because all these boards are not level with each other, as you can see. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to drill some locator pins through the end of this neck blank on both ends, and then that way we won't have any issues when it comes to gluing it up this time. Once it dries and I take it out of clamp, I can put this down on my table. I'll super glue and masking tape it, or we'll clamp it down, whatever we have to do. I'll take my number 4 hand plane or my block plane and we'll get this surface nice and flat and parallel to the back. I could run it through the planer, but I don't think that would fare well. I tried this the other day when I was surfacing this wood down, getting ready to make this neck blank, and this curly maple is so highly figured, as you can see, so it does not like a planer. I could not run it across the jointer. It chipped it out big time. So I know a nice sharp blade on my block plane or my number 4 or even my number 5 or 6 will do a much cleaner job at cleaning this wood up than a jointer or a planer will do. I'm going to concentrate in each video on no more than a couple of different processes. So I'm planning on releasing 3 episodes just for the neck build on this guitar. By the end of that 3rd video, I intend to have a neck that is up to the point that it's ready to have finish put on it. I am doing this guitar as a bolt-on, but as you can see, I made this neck blank. It's about 1 5/8 inches thick. It actually is closer to 1 13/16 inches. I'm going to put a 7.5 degree back angle on this headstock. I am going to use a 3x3 headstock, and I'm going to try to come up with an original Uni-T headstock design while we're doing this. I'm going to make the heel of the neck the thick side of the red heart. I think that'll look cool running up the back of the neck with the skinny part of the taper up at the headstock side. So that's going to cause me to have to glue on some wings right here. I'm not even concerned about that, you guys. I have got 2 drops right there off of these boards, these outside pieces of curly maple that I can use for those wings. I may put some veneer in between this, and we'll do something crazy. I want to make it look really cool. I've also got another idea that I'm thinking about starting to introduce into all my builds as a signature visual effect or attribute, whatever you want to call it. And we'll talk about that when we get to the point where we're getting ready to finish up this neck. So I am going to cut some veneer out. We'll slide that veneer down into this neck, and then we're going to clamp this neck up, drill a hole through it. We'll stack it up in the orientation that it's going to glue together in, and then we're going to glue this neck blank up. What I'll do is use two different veneers. I can at least get two pieces out of this though. Let's go for two. So this is East Indian rosewood. We better use this other end since it's still got a nice square factory edge on it. All right, I want this as close to the edge as possible so I'm not just wasting veneer. Okay, that's fumed eucalyptus that I used first. This is East Indian rosewood that I'm using now. I'm going to separate the maple with the rosewood, and I will use the fumed eucalyptus to separate the red heart and the maple. I want the grain to match because this is the same board. I just split it in half. So I want my curl to match on the two outside pieces. Even though they're not going to be touching each other, I still think that's going to create some uniformity that will lend itself to how this guitar looks. So that's what we're looking like. How cool is that, you guys? That's going to be awesome. All right, I'm going to take my Bessie clamps here that Bessie North America sent to me as a gift, and I am so appreciative of that. Okay, there's one. I'll actually use these clamps to glue this neck blank up too this time. And just to make certain that I don't introduce any tension into the neck when I go to drill it, I want to make sure that I take out any gap that may have left in the middle by adding a clamp there as well. All right, so I've got it clamped up. We're nice and seated on the flat side of our neck. That looks completely wicked and awesome. I love it. What I'm going to do now is take a piece of this 1/4-inch poplar dowel rod. I'm going to drill holes on the end of my neck blank as an indexing pin while everything is clamped up. This is the first time I've used this method, but I want to do this because I've had an issue in the past, both sides being slightly off, and I may have to plane both sides of this regardless. But what drilling this indexing pin through here is going to do for me is make sure this thing does not move. One of the other huge benefits for doing this is knowing I've got that tapered piece in the middle. That's going to keep this neck from wanting to slide and move everything out of place. I've got a fish 1/4-inch brad point bit in my drill, and we're just going to drill a hole way out here on this end. All right, so we got the first hole in there. Let's flip this thing over. I'm going to double check everything, make sure I'm still in line. There's our first dowel pin. Let's make ourselves another one that same length. Actually, let's make it a little longer. since we know we're on the thicker end. Let's chamfer this edge. Drive that down till it hits the table. Okay. I'm going to try not to use an overabundance of glue this go round. I like to start at one end and work my way to the other. I want to space these evenly. If I need to go back down through here and add some, I can. All right, I see squeeze out all the way down. Now when I'm using veneer like this, I really don't like to use water to clean up. I don't want to take any chances of contaminating the wood glue and making it weak. I think I'm going to start using this method to glue up a neck blank from now on. I really love the security of having those dowels to be able to slide those pieces down on. I always end up either having some cupping in the blank, or the veneer wants to slide a little and get up inside the gap, and then you got a hand plane down to where you meet it, or you have to fill the gap. I don't like to do that. It seems to me that could weaken the integrity. This way, you don't have that to worry about. I'll still have to hand plane it, but only to make sure it's nice and square and flat and parallel. The reason I'm going to have to hand plane this other side of this neck, as you guys saw, is all the boards are not the same thickness. Well, I could have made those boards the same thickness, either taken the time to cut them on the bandsaw, or I could have hand planed those boards. But we're talking less than 1/4 of an inch thick. I've got a vise. I could have put both of them in the vise and hand planed both of them at the same time. But in my opinion, there's not much difference in doing it that way or just hand planing it once they're already in the neck. That allows me to get a nice even surface with the wood surrounding those two pieces as well. So I didn't bother hand planing those two pieces before I put them in here. So I'll see you guys in the morning. We'll get down here, get this neck blank planed, and we'll talk a little bit. I may go ahead and mark it out, but we're not going to cut it yet before we wrap the video up. I just wanted to show you guys the neck blank glue up and the neck blank prep in this video. All right, you guys, today is Sunday, December the 18th. We're back in the shop. I've taken the clamps off the neck blank. That's all I've done. We need to get this over to the bandsaw and saw the ends off where these pins will disappear. One thing before we go forward, I want to apologize for that yellow rag that was down in the left-hand corner of most of the video earlier. I've got a second camera in here now that I'm starting to experiment with, and I want to find out how the video looks in comparison to my Canon M6. I've got a new Zoom Q2N 4K camera, but I'm going to start using that camera for close-up work and stuff like that. I'm still in the experimentation phase. I apologize for that yellow rag, you guys. I will try to pay closer attention to that in the future. Let's get over to the bandsaw and cut these ends off right here. There we go. Now we've got a proper neck blank. Let's check that length one more time. Oh yeah, we got plenty of room. What I want to do now, since this side is almost flat already, I know I don't have as much work to do on this side. We're going to super glue and masking tape this neck blank down to the table, and then I'm going to take my planes. I've got a block plane, a number 4, and what is considered to be a number 5. But this is a vintage Chaplain Tower and Lions. It's a little bit bigger than a number 5. It's about a 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch longer than a standard number 5 is. All right, let's get this neck blank glued to the table with some masking tape and super glue. So I'm going to start with my number 4, and I've just sharpened these, so I may have to set them up a little. Nothing beats a good sharp hand plane, you guys. So there's our plane side. We're good. That feels nice and slick and smooth. It looks completely flat. It is completely flat. We're good. All right, I'm going to tape this up one more time. Cheers, my brothers. We're good to go. So this will be the visible part of the back of the neck, and that is lovely. So I've got my neck blank here. We're surface down. I'm flat on the 2 sides that matter right now. I've got my neck template right here. All we're going to do is mark out where our nut line's going to fall, the end of our heel, and the end of our headstock. 43 millimeters thick. That's all we have to work with now. So when you're figuring out your break angle, once we figure out where our nut's going to fall and where the end of our headstock's going to fall, we can measure up on the end of that headstock line about 18 millimeters. That's going to leave us room for sanding. I'll explain that process a little better once we get to that point and we've got all these marks made on this blank. For now, what we need to do is figure out a center line. Then we'll lay that template down on here and figure out where our headstock's going to end, where our heel's going to end, and where our nut's going to fall. Those are the 3 lines that we need on this that run perpendicular to the center line right now. First, let's get this center line drawn out. We'll take our Crimson protractor, one of my favorite tools ever, and we're going to grab a 0.5 millimeter pencil. A 0.5 millimeter pencil fits in those slots that is cut into this thing, so you can be really exact with it. So I want to use the veneer line in the center as the determining factor, not the total width of the neck. All right, there's our center line on that end. Let's come down here. There we go. We want a nice legible mark here. So this center line right here is one of the most important lines that you can make on a guitar. It's super important that you get it accurate. That center line is the line by which all other lines on this guitar are going to be referenced to, so to speak. So it is really important that you get that right. What we need to do now is lay our 24 fret neck template down on this neck blank, mark the end of the heel, the nut line, and the tip of the headstock. All we really need right now is a length. We don't need the width yet because I already know I'm going to have to glue on some wings to this thing. I'm going to mark the end of the heel. We're going to make ourselves a mark at the nut and we'll square that with the protractor. You want this as accurate as possible, so I'm taking my time with it. There we go. There's our nut line. Let's do the same thing down here at the heel. Now what we need to do is measure the length of this headstock. This is not the headstock that I'm planning on using, but I am going to use this tuner layout. I'm going to offset these, however. So we'll need to go a little longer than this headstock is. Let's measure this first. 173 millimeters is how much this headstock requires. I'm going to say probably 185, 190 will be perfect. And it looks like we're going to be able to have that no problem. So now, what I was talking about before is taking that back headstock line, and it kind of helps if you know what your total headstock length's going to be. So I'll probably need to figure out what we're going to do with this headstock, make myself a template out of MDF. That is a PRS tuner layout. When I go back up to the house this evening, we don't need this right now, but when I go back up to the house this evening, I'll copy over this tuner layout from some paper templates and we'll offset them. As long as I observe the same center line, I can move these tuners up or down my headstock and still keep relatively the same string pull, which I like the way a PRS is. It's almost straight string pull. But back to what I was talking about earlier, figuring out how much of an angle we actually have here. Let's draw these lines down the side of our neck blank. I know I need to come 18 millimeters from the bottom, and that's actually going to give us about 2 millimeters of slop. Let's copy our nut line over to the sides. So here's what I'm talking about when it comes to figuring out this angle. You don't have to do a bunch of math. We can take those two lines that we've got drawn on the neck, one at the nut here, one at the end of our headstock, which we know is longer than it needs to be. We know we need to come 18 millimeters up off the bottom because we want our headstock to end up at least 16 millimeters thick. Some people go 15, some people go 17. 16 is a good rule of thumb, and I like to leave myself some carving and sanding room. So we're going to figure on an 18 millimeter measurement from the bottom side of our neck blank up on this line. That means we've got from the top of this neck blank down to that 18 millimeter mark from the bottom. That's our determining factor on the maximum angle we can have. So I'll show you guys what I mean, and I'm going to draw this really lightly because I may end up changing something, you guys know. Once I figure out the actual headstock length, this will be a little easier. But I'm going to draw this out just to show you guys what I mean. That angle right there is our maximum break angle based on this headstock length. If we go any further down, our headstock's going to end up too thin at the top. If we come any further up, we're not going to have a great enough break angle. We'll have a bunch of material wasted on the bottom of this neck blank. So if we have to figure out what that level is, you can line your 90-degree up flat with the top of the neck. Looking at this, I am at 7.5 degrees, so that's perfect. The advantage I have found to cutting a 7.5 degree back angle on the headstock, no greater than that. I mean, you can push it and go to 8, but 7 to 7.5 degrees is really the perfect break angle. Because what happens is, on a 40 to 44 millimeter body thickness, and you use a 7 to 7.5 degree break angle on your headstock with a headstock that ends up with a total thickness of 16 millimeters, if that guitar lays on a table, you'll have about 4 millimeters of space left between the back of your headstock and that table. We'll use one of those sides for reference when we go to cut this. We'll cut it a little bit shy, and then we'll hand plane that surface flat. We'll decide if we want to use a headstock plate or whether or not we want to leave it looking like it does now, because this is actually really beautiful. All right, you guys, we got our neck blank up to the point that it's ready to have the truss rod slot routed in it. So I would consider this neck blank prepped and ready to start work on. We're going to wrap this video up right here. I told you guys earlier in this video that I'm going to concentrate a little bit more on each individual process try to show you guys a little bit more in detail what I'm doing. So in the next video, we're going to get that truss rod slot routed. We're going to do some work on the fretboard, get it ready to glue onto this neck. We'll run it around the router table after we carry it to the bandsaw and cut out the rough shape, route out the perimeter shape of this neck. We'll start to work on it, figure out some angles, drill in our tuners and everything. That will pretty much encompass the whole next video. In the third video for the neck build on this guitar, my plan is anyway, for it to basically feature the neck carving process and all the sanding that's involved to get this neck up to the point that it's ready to be mounted onto a guitar. Once this neck gets to that point, we'll wrap that third video up, we'll set the neck to the side for a while, and we'll turn our attention over to the body, which I'm really excited about, and that's what's going to make or break this deal. As it stands right now, I'm leaning heavily towards a single cutaway shape, but I'm purposely not letting myself get any ideas about it. We will draw this out on the wood once I get the body blank prepped and we get ready to start doing that work. Then I'll start to think about what kind of shape we want. For now, I want to concentrate solely on getting this neck made like I want it to be. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you don't mind. Give me a thumbs up, leave me some comments. I really appreciate all the comments you guys leave for me. That fuels my inspiration to do this, you guys. It really does, and I am so thankful for each and every one of you. I try to answer every comment that I can. You guys know that I am more than eager to help any one of you that I can, and I'm more than eager to learn anything I can from you guys that know more than I do. So please don't stop doing that. I really appreciate it, and I really enjoy the communication that we've developed here. Don't forget to head over to Tornelliguitars on YouTube. Give him a subscribe, give him a thumbs up, leave him some comments. Gio's my brother, and I'm really enjoying working with him. We're ready to roll. We've both started that build, and I am so on fire about what I think that guitar is going to end up looking like, not just for me, but for Gio as well. Anyway, stay on the lookout for that. Hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date when all these videos post. And as always, you guys, until the next video, peace and love.